This is Pastor E with Real Talk with E. We're on our Marriage Monday thing here. I got Pastor Dennis here. What's going on, Pastor Dennis?
Hey, it would help if I turned my microphone.
Yeah, it might help if you get your microphone down. We got Johanna here. Johanna, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Awesome. Hey, before we get started, we are being sponsored by Little Caesars. Little Caesars, home of the hot and ready cheese or pepperoni pizza, delivers pizza right to you. Order on the app and get it delivered right to your door. Don't forget to add Crazy Breads or Caesar wings to your order and make it a meal with a 2-liter soda. Little Caesars, all made fresh and delivered to your door. Pizza. Hey, Little Caesars, thank you so much for sponsoring Real Talk with E. We really appreciate it. Hey, we got some really cool stuff that's going on today, and I'm just going to turn it right over to Johanna because Johanna's got us. She's got us organized now. Thank goodness. Somebody needed to do it, Johanna.
Oh, I don't know if we're there yet, but I did just realize why when I leave here I'm hungry.
Maybe I'll
Subliminal.
ask Little Caesars to bring us some pizza.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah,
I don't
go.
know if we want to see video of it, but
No
let's
video.
see. So, are you ready?
I am ready.
So we did a lot of talking and a lot of thinking. We're picking up on something that was said a couple weeks ago about this idea of healing in relationships. Is that what it was, Dennis?
Yeah.
Like that this was something that's possible, but we wanted to go deeper, and so we're going to talk about an aspect of that today. It might be something that becomes a theme.
Word.
But something that came up as I was thinking and praying about this idea was, where do we live from in relationships? What is the place that we usually bring into our relationships? What's the part of our brain that we use? And the thing that was coming up was from a brain science. This is very nerdy. But from a brain science perspective, I think we're living from this emotional part of our brain, which is called the amygdala. And it speaks about fear and guilt and shame, and how many of us that have struggled in relationship really find ourselves living in that place as opposed to something else, which is what we have option of having in relationships is living from what we call our prefrontal cortex, that's where a lot of the executive functions. So if you think about planning, if you think about making choices, good choices, that's where that happens. So that's where we can make choices for compassion and for forgiveness and things like that. So I think that kind of as the groundwork is what I was putting out there. And then beyond that is, from a biblical perspective, it's beautiful to think that most of us that are coming with sin in our life, with sadness, with places that are unhealed, it seems like a lot of those are in that emotional place, and yet Jesus is asking us questions like, do you want to be healed? If you want to forgive, is it just once off, or is it 70 times 7? So we're actually being compelled, being asked to make these choices, and not to make them alone, but to make them in relationship with Christ.
That's awesome. I like the fact that we're starting to talk, a little bit more about the science behind it, along with the faith, because it, how it ties together, how it aligns together. I think is really important, because let's face it, we've got some people that will listen to this podcast, and they're not as strong in their faith, right, as what we would hope them to be. Maybe they're a little more into the science side of it, but hopefully by the time we're ending this podcast, we can kind of tie them together and make some sense out of it for people. Because as I read what you put down, it's funny. I love the way you said this: fear not, or do not be afraid. It is repeated around 70 times in the Bible. Sorry, you guys, it's not 365 times.
Oh, we all saw that meme. You've seen the meme.
Yes.
It says 365 times in the Bible. Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. But, Pastor D, what do you think, man? You saw what Johanna put together and what we've kind of discussed for a little while. How do you see the intricacies of the brain and science and, faith kind of working together, or do you see it working together?
You mean, can faith and science work together?
Yeah, can it work together?
Doesn't it have to work together? Can you have one Well, Jesus is asking us, you're asking the wrong question. That was a bad question. Start over. Rewind. You can certainly have science without faith. We live in that world. We see lots of folks. But I don't know if you can have faith without science because we're all looking for validation. We're all looking for, does what I believe in, does it have roots? Is there something that's deeper that I can prove what I believe in is worth believing in?
Okay.
Right? And so we look to science to confirm. We look to radiocarbon data. We look to DNA kind of testing. We look to those kinds of things to confirm what we believe. Now, I don't know that a whole lot of Christians would admit that because faith is supposed to be believing in what's unseen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But in reality, we are, I think, many of us looking for some confirmation of what we believe.
Oh, that's good stuff. That's
Yeah.
good stuff. Go ahead, Johanna.
Yeah, I think just that idea of just validating and confirming, it's not even just with the idea of science and faith, but also just us as people.
Sure.
It's, that it goes beyond that, or it goes deeper, that when we live our life, we want to be confirmed. We want to be validated. And it's just such a human function.
It's interesting that you say that because sometimes I ask the question, why do we need to feel validated by other people? Their validation is as suspect and as up and down as anybody else's. I mean, because they're not perfect people, right? They have sin. They fall short, just like, you and I do, right? So why is it that we have this need for somebody to validate the way we feel in order for us to take steps forward in healing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because it goes to that. It goes to those base ideas again. That we have we have fear.
We have fear, and we're built for community.
Sure.
And community is about consensus. It's about hearing from other folks and existing and living with and interacting with other people. And you don't want to do that in a adversarial way,
Sure.
Right? It's a lot more fun if you're lifting each other up. As someone who has worked with lots and lots of couples and really finds value in Dr. Gary Chapman's 5 love languages, almost any man that you ask to take that test, the first or second love language is going to be words of affirmation. Now, it happens with many women too, but almost all men need that affirmation. That's just some need that God has put in us. You women already know we're needy. We're so needy. We're so needy.
I'm going to give that a clap.
But the reality is that the communal aspect of us longs for that.
So I'm going to be the,
Are you going to poo-poo?
I'm going to Debbie
the poo-poo
Downer.
or the bear poker? Which one are you going to be today?
Both. So
I'm glad we're videoing so you can get your pointy, pokey fingers up.
So how is validation, and what'd you say that men needed?
Words of affirmation.
Why? How are they the same?
Validation and words of affirmation?
Sure.
How are they not the same?
Because I don't need you to validate me in order for you to affirm me as far as making nice things, saying nice things about me. That doesn't necessarily validate who I am.
Ah. Oh, interesting. The plot thickens.
Don't
okay.
it?
No, go. But I need you to break that down a little bit because I think that's going to be like a game changer for women out there.
I'm hoping so, and I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah, please do.
So, in order
I'm
for you
taking
to,
notes.
in order for you to validate me, that means you have to say something to me to make me feel like I want to feel. But that may not necessarily be true. Just because you tell me that, man, you are a great person, I see you working and trying real hard to be a great person. That is you validating how I want to feel about myself. Does that necessarily mean that that's a true statement?
Wait, so then affirmation has to be true?
I would hope affirmation would have to be true.
What do you think, Dennis?
What's the purpose in it?
I thought you were just throwing that example out there to show that it didn't have to be true. I thought that's where you were about to drop the boom on us here. I'm thinking you're a great person, and all the time no, I'm not. I'm not that great person.
Well, let me put it like this, because this is what I've seen in relationships. I've heard in relationships where I've heard men and women say, I really need to be affirmed. And I said, why? How does that person's affirmation determine how I feel about myself? Explain that. That's what I'm having trouble with. How is it that if, for an example, I'm going to use Jill as my example. If Jill doesn't say anything nice or affirming about me, does that mean that what I feel about myself is untrue?
No, does not mean that.
Okay, I'm trying to understand, seriously.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I was saying I was going to poke the bear a little bit.
Yeah.
Because in order for me to feel good about myself, I can't rest on what you say about me to validate me. Your words of affirmation do not and cannot validate who I am.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Well, but see, that's what we get stuck in, though, even in relationships.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, if you don't say that I'm a wonderful wife, or a wonderful husband, or if I'm a wonderful person, and then I can't possibly feel that about myself. Well, then then you really don't believe in you were fearfully and wonderfully made.
Okay, but I think from a female perspective, oftentimes we are saying, okay, I need some guidance. And so hey, honey, did you like dinner tonight? Actually, I hated the meatloaf.
Stop right there. Stop right there. Stop right there. Stop right there. Because if we say, I really didn't like the meatloaf.
Yeah.
I didn't affirm you because you wanted to hear me say it was great.
Okay, well, let's flip it around then. What if you said, yeah, I really like the meatloaf, but I wish you'd use more breadcrumbs next time.
Okay.
That's helpful.
It's very helpful. But guess what? What does that say about you as a person?
Well, no. See, this is what I'm saying, is that it helps with me in making more steps to make our household more happy, create more of an environment that you enjoy in serving one another.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think that in that scenario that it's something that is, okay, pat me on the back, I need this.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Got you. Now I understand. Come on, Dennis. Don't sit over there and be all quiet like you don't have something snarky to say right now.
I'm about to blow you up.
Blow me up. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Oh, no.
So
Now I'm scared.
This is off the cuff. All right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I hear what you're saying about validation, and I agree. Now, however, do words of affirmation, which is geared to what you do, not who you are. Validation is about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Words of affirmation are about what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if your wife, and who will be nameless because I don't want her to get hate mail, if your wife is to affirm you with words of affirmation for what you do, does that then go into your amygdala, prefrontal cortex, wherever that is it goes into, and confirm to you that you are now more of the person you want to be? Because the outcome of how you're living is allowing one that you love to affirm that that's meaningful to her. And so now does that get whirled around into the blender, and you're now able to affirm yourself, I am being the one I want to be. I am living the way I want to live. I am espousing the morals, the faith, the husband, the father, the whatever the word of the day is. Does that make does that have any correlation, any relationship?
So let me make sure I understand this. So validation is who I am. Affirmation is what I do. And so the question is, if I don't accept the affirming comments, that could potentially harm, using my wife as the example, she's the one giving me the affirming comments, that could potentially harm her and as well as how I see myself. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
No, what I'm trying to say is you can't, God didn't make men. We don't have the ability not to accept affirming comments. It's inherent, and it blows us up like a balloon, and we can't control it. When we get affirmation from our wife, we can get it from friends, from bosses, from anybody else. It does not have the impact. When we get it from that one who has more power in our life than any other person in the world, it blows us up. We walk taller. We feel better about ourselves. We can't not receive it. When it's affirmation, we can't not receive it.
Okay.
So now, but what I'm trying to say, does that then go back into the validation? Does the affirmation get recycled back into helping us? You said no one else can validate us. We have to. We validate our own self, right?
To me, what I'm saying is that no matter how much praise you heap on me,
Right.
if I don't feel good about who I am, it doesn't matter. You can heap praise all day long, because if I don't feel good about me, what makes you think that I'm going to receive your affirmation?
I got you.
What makes you think I'm going to believe the affirmation? So that's why I was saying that's where the waters get muddy for me, because I'm like, okay, so if I'm going to feel validated about who I am, it sounds like then I have to receive the affirmation in order for it to validate me. And I'm saying, well, what do we do as spouses if I don't receive the affirmation? Does that change who I am?
So can we just get clarity on this?
I doubt it.
Because Dennis, you said that across the board, 100% men hear and take in affirmation and don't. I mean, the female version of that is you hear affirmation and then the voices in your head start saying, he doesn't really mean that.
Wow. That's the female version, or that's your version? Eric's about to blow up.
Well,
I just want to know. So how does that validate you then?
I don't think that it does.
That's the reason why I said I'm coming right back around here, because that's what I didn't understand. And I'm not poking.
No,
I really
I
am
get
not. I really don't understand it, because I have heard so many people say she doesn't affirm me. And I say, wait, hold on. How do you feel about you? Because if what you are is all in a knot, it's a mess, it's all torn up. Yeah. I don't care how much affirmation you get. You won't believe the affirmation when it comes to you, and you just said it for me.
You got me back into that corner, didn't you? Okay, but I still want to get clarity. Is that a male thing across the board, that if you get affirmation, it's 100% like...
We cannot not respond to that. Now, what you're thinking is affirmation comes from words, and that's not the way women receive affirmation. Women want to receive affirmation by feeling cherished. Mm-hmm. And so when I reach out and grab my wife's hand, when we're walking and I put my hand out there, and wherever she is, she finds that hand. Yeah. That's her affirmation. Mm-hmm. When I'm opening the car door, that's her affirmation. Mm. She cannot not receive that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Got it. Mm. That's good. This is good.
We're finally getting to the foundation.
I learned this week my foundation's cracked.
And there's a company that'll come in and tell you.
That's right.
No, I'm glad we talked about this, because it really does help. Because, Dennis, I know you know this. Johanna, you know this. Counseling with people, you hear these type of things, and the first thing you do is you go, big dog, sweetie, whatever. No,
Big
I,
dog.
I don't know how much affirmation you're going to get that you're going to receive if you don't like you. If you don't have any sort of, standard about yourself, no matter how many words of affirmation you get, it's not going to help. And here's the reason why I say this, because in marriages, in marital situations, right, what we do is we go to the actions before we actually start looking at the why. We start looking at ourselves. We want to go fix something in the moment. So we say, hey, you know what? My husband is down. He's just been moping around here. Instead of taking the risk, resisting the fear, and saying, let me go talk to him and find out, hey, what's going on? What's up with you? Let's talk. We say, oh, Pastor Dennis said if I just heap words of affirmation on him, he'll take it. And unfortunately, as right as you are, Dennis, it is I don't know of any man that has not been able to accept words of affirmation from his wife. But I think part of the problem is the fear causes us to not deal with the issue and instead start playing around with symptoms. And that's where I feel like, that's why I was asking that question. And it was very, very helpful, both of you, what you guys were saying.
Okay. I found a fatal flaw in this setup.
Please do.
You cannot microphone drop that.
What if I hit? No, I'm not hitting it. It costs too much money. I ain't hitting that.
Okay. All kidding aside, say it again because I want to make sure that everybody heard it. Fear causes us not to focus on the issue and just the symptoms.
Correct.
That is some truth.
Because you know what we're afraid of? We're afraid of if we talk to the person about the issue, that we're actually the issue.
Now, let me go in for some clarity, because I don't disagree with what you said, but I want to clarify one thing. What you might not have meant this, but what I heard you say was, words of affirmation make me to be a better person than I might be. Did I say that right?
No, I was asking. It was like, do you think that that's what it's supposed to do?
What words of affirmation do is it doesn't matter where you are, how low you are, or how high you are. Words of affirmation move you up one little level. One little, you might be at the lowest low, but when that important person, your wife, your girlfriend, your fiance, when she says, I really had a great time tonight, I loved it when you did XYZ, you might be the lowest of low, but you're a little bit better than that.
Got you.
Now.
I got you. Okay.
And depending on relationship and lots of other things, how long does that last? Do you build on it, or does it fall away because that's the only positive thing you get the rest of the week? Those are different conversations. But words of affirmation will make you better than you were.
Wow.
Okay.
It doesn't make you all you want to be. It makes you better than you were.
Good call. I like that. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Words of affirmation make you better than you were.
But, Pastor Eric.
Yes.
So you said that if we talk about the issue, then the fear is that the issue is actually we're going to discover that the issue is actually us.
Could be us. I think that's one of the reasons why, from my own personal life,
Yeah.
I have realized that when I don't deal with issues with people, doesn't have to be marriage. It could be friendships. It could be work relationships. It could be anything.
Yeah.
But when at times when I don't go address the issue with the person, I have realized that there's something inside of me saying, don't do it because it might be you. And then that's a whole nother thing to unpack. So now put that in a marital relationship, right? And because we're talking about fear here. Fear not. Do not be afraid, right?
Yep.
It's many times the scripture tells us to fear not. The person that we should be the least fearful of is oftentimes the person that we're the most fearful of.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely. Put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then that means I'll get in trouble for it.
Well, was it last time we talked about issues versus topics? Did that
I
make
think that was the first time.
Yeah,
that was our
first
first
time.
conversation.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of, we don't have to go back there, but that's what that reminds me
Yeah.
of. We're afraid to get to issues, and we stay on topics, right?
I think this is
Surface
like
level.
on that next level.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder, like, give us a case study, like, to be very nerdy again. Let's say couple has financial issues. Somebody's coming into the marriage with, $45,000 worth of credit card debt.
Mm-hmm.
And they get married. It's still there. They need to do something about it, but nobody brings it up. Like, nobody talks about it. I mean, you can come up with a million other scenarios, but I'm just trying to, just especially for the audience to hear, how does this actually play out?
Yeah, so I'm going to use the scientific. So my amygdala immediately jumps. If I'm not the person, I'm the person that is receiving the individual with the $45,000 worth of debt.
Yeah.
But they don't have that much money coming in.
Yeah.
So my amygdala goes, whoa, how are we going to deal with that? Wait a minute, why am I taking on that? Da-da-da-da-da. But because of fear, we won't say anything.
Nobody will say anything.
We're not saying a word because we'll figure it out. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard that. We'll figure it out. And I scream out, lies, lies. You will not figure it out. What you'll do is you will keep burying it.
You gotta say cap.
That's cap. Don't pay any attention to us because we're having problems.
I'm
here.
the Gen Z here
Yeah,
in
he's the
the room.
I am just laughing because you're laughing. I'm just smiling and nodding.
Yeah,
smiling and
we'll
nodding.
explain it afterwards.
Okay.
But to your point with your example, we're not going to jump on that, because then what if she says or he says, well, why are you making this such a big deal? I thought you loved me.
Mm-hmm. Which
Come on.
Which that's the backwards wheel from the affirmation and the validation. Then it's now you are reinforcing the fear.
Hold on. Because I got $45,000 worth of debt, does that change who I am? I'm throwing this, Mike. That was good. That's good. That's
Am
good.
I supposed to say amen now?
Yeah.
Need a word right here.
Okay.
You guys don't need me.
No,
I could
no.
just leave.
No. We do need you. You're the one that keeps us sane. But think about that for a minute. Because you have $45,000 worth of debt, because I am concerned how we're going to pay it, because, I am afraid to even say anything about this, does that change who you are as a person because you got $45,000 worth of debt?
So, yeah.
See, I
can see how this happens.
It
Yeah.
changes who I am on the other side, because now I want to manipulate that situation.
Oh,
Tell us all about the
I knew he was sitting over there. Come on. How you gonna manipulate it?
Well, now she owes me.
Ooh.
Man,
It's
talk.
not
Come on, Dennis.
even. It's not an even Steven relationship anymore. Now we're in a relationship where she owes me.
Wow, you can see how quickly this can go
Tight.
spiral.
Tight, but right.
Tight, but right.
Yes,
There you go.
that's
Wow.
tight.
And
Can
I
somebody
would-
start tweeting now?
And I would not be fearful of bringing that up.
You wouldn't.
No.
You wouldn't.
No.
Wait, you wouldn't be fearful of bringing up
bringing up that
She
she owes
owes
me.
me.
That's right.
Oh, that she owes you,
That's right.
not the money.
Oh, it wouldn't. No,
The money
not the money.
is what
it
you
wouldn't
owe.
be direct. It would be very indirect. It would be very
subtle.
deceitful, manipulative.
Okay, so let me just ask for clarity's sake. Is that a Dennis thing or is that a man thing?
Oh, that's a dentist thing.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to prescribe that to all men. No,
Okay.
absolutely. But if the man has a propensity to be controlling, then I think that could be easily that's a line easy to cross.
I agree.
So it gets spun around and thrown back at the person.
Correct. Because it's not just men, Johanna. Let's get
no,
something
yeah.
straight. It's not just men. Because ladies like to manipulate situations.
Oh, but
Preach on.
we do it very differently.
Preach on.
Yes, you do.
We do, and it goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning. We like to use emotions, to manipulate.
Without question. This is, again, I just want you. Yeah, there it is. You don't affirm who I am.
Just so much. I made the meatloaf, and you just,
Yo, Johanna's
There
got
you
this
go.
down to a science,
Oh, wow.
girl.
I got the real tears
Have
going.
you seen that movie When Harry Met Sally?
We're not going to do that part.
Please don't.
That's not even the amygdala. That's a whole other part of the
That's a whole
brain.
nother- yes. You know, the amygdala in women is about 2.5 times larger percentage-wise than in men.
I did not know that.
That is true.
Believe it.
Wow.
And it is this emotional center, that, and the gray matter around it allows for faster. So if you think about like a copper wire carrying current, there's more current capacity in women's brains than in men's brains to move between frontal cortex, amygdala, all the.
Amazing.
I believe it because we compartmentalize everything as men. We can't have like what is that? Waffles and spaghetti or something like that. I read
Right.
one time before. We don't like for things to touch, and that is part of the reason why we are very difficult to deal with emotionally in relationships. We don't know how to be emotional without it turning into potentially anger.
Oh,
Let me think about that. We don't know how to be emotional
without it turning into.
potentially anger.
I can be annoyed, and I don't, and be emotionally annoyed. Like I can go.
Wait, so anger is the baseline?
I think we can get to the point of anger where anger is something that we start to lash out of with our mouths and even start to use the anger as a mechanism to take advantage of situations too.
Wow.
I'm angry with you. I can see that bothers you, and you are trying your best to affirm me because I'm angry with you. And so what do? I can use that as a way to manipulate you.
Is that an Eric thing?
It is. Absolutely.
Yeah, I
It
think
is.
we need to have like paddles. Is
no.
that females in general or just Johanna?
No, I just raised my hand. Yes, that was me until I got called out on it.
Wow. I'm adding paddles to my admin list for next week.
I have never.
Not that paddle.
Well,
Your mind is going all the way to the gutter.
No, it's not having anything to do with that.
I was getting ready to say
It's a game.
I know the game.
oh.
Never have I ever. It was on that Ellen DeGeneres show.
Oh no, I don't know that one. So guess what? I get a chance to finally act like I don't know what we talking about. This is beautiful.
I feel like we have gone to completely uncharted territory today. My mind is blown.
So get us back around to where we're supposed
Well,
to be.
I'm coming back around right here. I'm looking at it. So we were talking about fear. That has been the kind of somewhat of the basis of what has been written, and we looked at. I mean, Johanna brought in some scripture: Romans 12:2, 1 John 2:16. I looked at 1 John 2:16 as well. Excuse me, Matthew 6:25. So I mean, you look at Romans 12:2. It says, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Okay? So I just have to ask this question. Is it an impossibility for our minds to be renewed if we're fearful?
Is it an impossibility for our minds to be renewed if we're fearful? Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. Why so? Because I like your answer. I just want to know what you're saying.
How many conversations have you had with people that say, I just can't do this because I keep running into fear. I keep running into fear. So you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again because we're so fearful of what the outcome could be. Even if it's a good outcome. Even if it's a good outcome, we're fearful. Like, it's crazy.
Pastor Dennis?
I
Chicken.
can't say unequivocally that it's yes. I could see sometimes it would be yes.
What is a time when you're fearful and
Well, fear can have stages, and it could be that the fear is, even though Pastor Eric says men commonly don't compartmentalize things as.
No, we
I
do
said that right.
compartmentalize.
We do
Yeah.
compartmentalize things. So to be able to compartmentalize off something and still be able to grow to explore in a different area, I think is a kind of a man kind of thing.
Which is really important. I mean, that goes back to exactly what you're just saying. I can't compartmentalize my fear.
Right. But I think I can.
You sure?
I think so.
Dennis or man? Dennis or man?
I think both. I think most, you can't say all men, but
Sure.
I think most can compartmentalize.
The fear.
Isn't that,
That's courage.
or stupidity?
That can be our next topic of conversation.
That's scary already. I like that. Here's the reason why I bring this up is when that scripture, when Paul is talking about, for our minds to be renewed, I think your mind must change in order for it to be renewed. I don't think you can stay in the same mindset and have your mind renewed. I'll tell you why I'm saying this. Do unsaved people have their minds renewed? No. So you have to change your thinking. You have to change the way you think, the way you approach things in life, meaning first from your faith perspective. If I'm saved, my mind can be renewed because my thinking has now changed. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The reason why I was even talking about this in the first place is because can fear, even when you're saved, can fear paralyze the way you think?
Absolutely.
Okay, then if fear can paralyze the way we think, can our minds really be renewed in the midst of fear?
I already answered. Why are you looking at me?
Yeah. So
And again, this is just
Yeah.
what you just said kind of made me go, ooh, that's good, Dennis.
I want to process that a little bit, and so I reserved the right to respond next week.
Okay.
But when you look into the Bible, and every time someone's confronted by the Lord, there's a "do not be afraid" kind of thing. But they're being transformed, and I have to think about this. Maybe not in that second, but when their faith requires action, I can't imagine that the fear is gone
Completely.
immediately, right? I think that it has to be worked out as you're obedient, and so I think that the process of being changed. So if you looked at it as a graph, the line of fear would be reducing, and the line of obedience would be increasing.
So let's bring this back around again. So we're talking about in a marital relationship. And I said earlier, because I don't want to blame anybody for anything. I said earlier that, I just forgot what I said. That's terrible. I'll come back to it.
Jill is always right.
She's always right.
That's
Yes.
what I thought you said.
Yes. In a marital relationship, though, I think that it requires a level of obedience from the man first in order for there to be a lack of fear in the couple second.
Wow. That's bold. Why is that?
Because when God made everything, he made mankind. Who did he make first? The man. When God called man to get married, he said that the two shall become one, right? But he told man to love his wife first before he told the woman to respect her husband. So the impetus, in my mind, is on the man in the marital relationship to drive the example of obedience so his wife wants to follow him, number one, but number two, also can follow him without fear. I think we heard Fred and Amma in the E5 when Amma said to Fred, she wants to know from Fred, what's the plan for our life? Because it helps to reduce my anxiety and fear, and it helps me to follow you more. Because when you tell me what the plan is, if that plan's not bathed in obedience to God, I'm not going to follow you. I think women have a natural inclination to want to know where this man is leading me. And if it's a man who says he's a man of God, then of course she's expecting to be led in that way. So if she sees disobedience from the man as it relates to him walking with the Lord, why in the world is she going to be without fear as she follows him?
Wow.
That's good stuff. Yeah.
See, again, y'all help me think through a lot. Johanna, why is it that when you're counseling with people, why is there such a fear to address issues with the person that people say that they love the most?
Beyond what we just already said?
Yeah, is there anything else that kind of drives any of that? Is it a fear of, hey, it could be me, or is it a fear of, hey, how is he going to respond or she going to respond?
It's like trying the same things over and over again and never getting never getting a response. It's because it's the not having the skills about having the conversations. It's the hurt and the trauma that's happened prior to the relationship. There's so many layers. I think part of the reason why marriage and relationships are so tricky is because it's not just that one layer. It's not just this one thread of conversation. It's a million other threads of conversation that we can talk about, like you said, the symptom or the issue, the issue or the topic. But that's just one topic and one issue. In a sense, we're millions of faceted. That's why it's just so tricky.
I think the base answer that I have to that, Eric, is women's basic need from men is security. Financial security, emotional security, and physical security. And if they're afraid of one of those being breached, damaged, threatened through a conversation, then it's hard to go there.
Well, let me ask you, because you've said this before, and that is really, it is really tugged at me, because I see a lot of young women out here now that are in their 20s, 30s, going into their 40s, and they have never gotten married. Mm-hmm. They will tell you in a heartbeat, I don't need to rely on a man.
Yeah.
I can do anything. I can get anything that I need just from myself. Why is that like a shift in what has gone on, or is that what's creating that?
We don't talk about flourishing anymore. We don't talk about what it could be if that happens. Like we're like, okay, I'll take this version of my life, and again, fear or whatever is keeping them from making the leap into a relationship and experiencing or potentially experiencing what it is to have that financial, emotional, spiritual security. And so there's more that's available. We could take that across the board.
Okay.
That we are accepting of a status quo as opposed to what true flourishing actually looks like.
And we don't know what we don't know, and some of us don't admit that.
And we don't see it anymore in other couples.
But the question is legit, and the question flipped around is one I have struggled with, and that is, I believe the Bible says that God created women as a helper, right? As a counselor. Mm-hmm. And the word that they use in the Hebrew in Genesis to talk about that is used a couple of other times, and it gives, it ascribes to this same kind of synonym that something God did, something not slave kind of helper, but a God, only God could accomplish this kind of helper. Mm-hmm. And so, if you just take that one logical step further, then men are better with that person in their life than they would be without that person. Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean for someone like Paul, who we don't ever think was married in the Bible? Does that mean that some amazing man of God that's not married is not all that he could be? Mm-hmm. And you asked the question about the woman. So it's the same question, and I don't have any answers there, but I've struggled with that. But I do believe I am better and more than I would be if I was alone.
Understand? So that brings me to this question. Why is it that people don't want to be healed? Because all the things we've talked about, think about it. All the things that we've talked about, to your point, Johanna, there's so many different layers and there's so many different things threads that you pull on and you pull, and it's like, oh Lord, that's still going and it's going and it's going.
Yeah.
And it's like people have gotten to a place where they're very impatient in their marital relationships. It's like, if you don't do it by this time, then it ain't getting done, or we ain't gonna be, whatever it is. There's so much going on to it. Like, I mean, I'm listening to couples say that, he's withholding sex from me. She's withholding sex from me. And I'm thinking to myself, what does that have to do with how you love her? Or what does that have to do with how you love him? And why would you be doing that, right? Why do these things happen? So it naturally brings me to what you had, we had talked about, and Johanna, you had made mention of in your stuff here, is that, do we want to really be healed, or do we just want to keep going through the motions and then expecting that it's going to somehow get better? I mean, I see so many people nowadays they're going to therapists, they're going to counselors, and then they'll come see us. And I'm looking like, well, we don't have the magic bullet. If you don't want to be healed, there's really not a whole lot we can do for you. I mean, we can help you talk through some of your situations and everything. But if you're going through a counselor or a therapist, a Christian counselor, Christian therapist, no disrespect to anybody, but that's just the way I feel. If you're going through, what else can we do? At some point in time, you have to say, I want to get better. What do I have to do to get better? Because you said it earlier, Johanna, people keep going through the same motions, the same steps over and over again. And yet they go, well, I don't feel like I've gotten anywhere. Of course you haven't. You haven't made up your mind that you actually want to be better. I know that's a really aggressive statement, so I apologize, but that's the way I feel. Yes, Dennis.
While Johanna is formulating her brilliant response,
I was being patient.
I would like to weigh in. And again, I don't want to beat the proverbial blanket on the side of the railing.
Okay.
But
that's some real country stuff right
That
there.
is-
I'm gonna
I
give
know,
that's a clap right there for all of that. My bad.
yeah, I grew up watching my grandmother do that on the clothesline.
Oh, I did see that growing up. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What was I talking about? Okay. It's very comfortable. Who's the character in Peanuts that has the blanket?
Linus.
It's very comfortable, and it's very comforting to have that suitcase of baggage. And there's security in that. And there's security in being a victim, and there's security in all of those, all the things that come with that. And so that's from the female perspective. Again, security is so important. And for the male perspective of that, to begin to unpack that, who's going to respect that person? That basic need of respect is going to be in danger. So there's the fear part. The fear is there won't be any respect once people know who I am. I need that respect of walking this way and looking this way, and unpacking that and revealing something else is too painful to even imagine.
Oh,
That's good stuff.
I just got a completely different insight as to why, like, there's this kind of phenomena of when men start to tackle some of their own abuse, like childhood abuse, that, like, it's just an extraordinary amount of relationships that end. And you just said why? Like, I've been like running over in my head, like, what is that? What is the reason? And you just, thank you. Now I can sleep at night.
That's biblical. Women want to be, God told man to love his wife, and he said for a woman to respect her husband. So it all kind of goes back to the biblical aspect of things.
Both of them are serving. It's just knowing who you're serving and what their needs are.
Sure. Which means you can't be afraid to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Got you. All right.
But to answer your question, like, I think it's because we've kind of gone like this. I think all of us have kind of like made this hand motion today that it just seems like we go around in circles so much. And, sometimes it's a downward spiral. I think the question is, like, what is the exit? Like, what is that red button that you can press and say, I want out of this, not out of the relationship, but I want to get out of.
Off the ride. Huh. All right.
Is it hope? Is it, I don't know. What is it? Curiosity?
Well, it's trust. It's what it is. You have to be able to trust the other. That if you, so Dr. Egerich in his book Love and Respect calls this the crazy cycle. And so why should I love her when she won't respect me? Why should I respect him when he won't love me? So the first one that gets off of that and says, hey, time out, we're not doing this anymore, has to trust that it will be received with love or with respect, whichever the term needs to be, right?
Yeah.
And without that, you don't get off that crazy cycle.
So somebody has to be bold enough to withstand the fear, to step in and say, I want us to be, notice how I said that, I want us to be healed.
Yep.
So we have to get off the ride. And if you won't get off the ride, I'm getting off the ride.
But what happens when only one person gets off the ride?
I think that's going to be a topic for another day. We're going to have to kind of unpack that, because I think that's what happens a lot now, at least from my experience with counseling with marital couples who are going through what they deem as hell. And I keep saying, it's not hell. Please, let's put things in its proper perspective. You're not going through hell. You're going through a really, really horrendous time, but it's not hell. And the reason why I say that is because I want people to know that there is a God in heaven that has already ordered your steps. So what you're going through is not new to him. He already knows how this is going to end, but he's waiting for you to trust him, right? So in order to get off, like, what do you do when one person won't get off the wheel? You have to trust God. You cannot trust him or her or self or anything. You just can't. It doesn't work.
And it creates a whole other, the upward cycle. I mean, once you trust God, then what happens?
I can speak from personal experience on this one. When you trust God, God intervenes and starts working on your behalf. You shut up. You don't speak as much. That's for sure. Go ahead, Dennis, because you over there about the bus.
No, I'm saying come to church Sunday. Because we're talking about Job, and what a great expose of trusting God or not, and cursing God and dying or not, kind of thing. So, yeah, tune in if you're. I guess this won't be posted till after Sunday.
No, it'll get.
But then maybe
that.
the next week you can do like vine and the branches and all the fruit that comes from being in the vine.
A few weeks ago, Johanna, you said this thing, and we've hit all around it. It still resonates in me so deeply, and I don't know how we are going to explore it today. We won't, but marriage is the ultimate healing relationship. It's the place where you come to heal together around God, because of God, through God. All of those, it's so, you talk about multifaceted. Oh my goodness, it just creates so much energy in my mind to be able to unpack that, explore that, and begin to understand it well enough to teach it. My goodness.
Well, and it kind of takes us back, I think, to our first conversation, which is, what is the vision? Like we've kind of come full circle one time around, it seems like we're going to like a new level. But then what is the vision?
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. So go ahead. You got something else?
What if the vision was, what does a marriage look like without fear? And that you're working toward healing. And that would be an interesting. One of the things I like to do in marriage retreats and stuff is ask the couples to rate them. How's your communication level? What's your satisfaction with your sex life? All those kinds of things. That's another one I'm going to learn. What's your fear level?
How fearful are you?
How fearful are you? That's fascinating insight.
And maybe say, what are you fearful of?
Yeah, what are you fearful of? Yeah, maybe you give them 4 or 5 categories or something, but.
I mean, that could be a whole, like, one retreat is just asking those 5 categories and just focusing on trust versus fear.
Yep.
And hope.
Trust and hope. And hope is, I wrote this down because you said that a few weeks ago. What is hope? And gosh, hope depends on where you are in your relationship, right? For some, hope would be sex, more sex. For some, hope would be trust. I want to be able to trust and feel secure in this relationship. So it just goes on and on, right?
Yeah.
Here's one thing to think about before we end and go our merry way.
Do we have to be merry?
You know,
I feel like being grumpy.
You can be grumpy if you
Okay,
want
thank
to. I mean,
Or hangry. Can I be hangry?
Yeah.
Is that an emotion? Am I working for my... No, I'm just
think-
joking.
we need to come up with an emoji for hangry.
Well, you already talked about
hangry.
meatloaf and pizza.
Yeah, I think.
I know.
Yeah, I think you're on the hangry train.
Yeah, I'm on the hangry train.
So how do we talk to people from a marital standpoint who have fear that's been driven by their upbringing? Because we talk all about marriage.
We're not going to talk about that today.
No,
That's
no,
a whole
no,
other
no,
topic.
No. I'm saying it's something to be thinking about, so that the audience that listens to this can be thinking about.
Yeah.
How do we talk about that? Because a lot of people have fear based on not their own experience, but the experience of people that they trust. And if the people that they trust go, oh man, that's bad, that's going to be really bad, you don't really want to do that, da da da, or oh my gosh, if he does that, or if she says that, that's what this means, da 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 da. So they've heard this and heard this and heard this. How do they unhear it so that they don't spoil or taint their own marital relationship based upon the fear of someone else that they love?
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there. So, final words. Pastor D, I'll let you go first this time.
I'm all finaled out. I don't have any final words.
Nothing?
I'm just consumed with this image of what a God-focused marriage could be.
Wow.
And that's just resonates. So thank you, Johanna, for kind of cultivating that process with your thoughts.
Yeah. I just love that as like kind of like the umbrella. I mean, and it feels like the more conversation, this can be my final word.
Absolutely. Go,
It
girl.
feels like the more conversations we're having, the more aspects of that we're discussing.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you both thank you, because you guys really enlightened me. You kind of helped me think about what I think about. Does that make sense? You know, kind of put some perspective on it, because there are things that I see and my mind gets made up based upon the experiences that I have, and that it's beautiful to have other people go, no, I don't agree with that, you know, which falls right in line with marriage, right? You're supposed to be able to disagree with your spouse in such a way that you guys go, man, thank you for upping my game. Thank you for kind of, you know, making me better than what I was before. And I don't know if that's affirming, validating, or what it is, but I appreciate you guys doing that with me, because then it helps me now to know how to do that with other people. So I thank you for it. And for those of you who are joining us, hey, we just say thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to us today. Yes, we know that we're a little bit crazy, but all three of us are genuinely in love with marriage. We want to make sure that everybody's marriage, it works the best that it can possibly work. And which means that you also have to work on some of the mental health things that we all have to deal with in our life, you know, because even though we've had our own experiences, it doesn't mean that we're always right with the experiences that we've had. It just means that we've had those experiences. So I'm Pastor E with Tomahawk Church, and this is Real Talk with E. We love you guys and look forward to the next one.
Peace out.
Peace out. Bye-bye.